ended the day up 61 points at 75.59. The pound buying $1.26 and €1.11. LBC weather staying largely dry and clear overnight for most of the country, a low of 3. Tomorrow, some rain across the far north, long sunny spells though further south, with a high of 24 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. I'm here in Strasbourg. It's the 2nd of July, the opening of the new 5-year parliamentary term, whilst in Brussels, debates are still going on about who the next European Commission president is going to be to replace Jean-Claude Juncker. I'll tell you a little bit later on what happened at the opening today and why it seemed to become rather controversial. But back to who is the next Prime Minister going to be, and a hustings today, yes, another Conservative hustings took place today in Belfast. So, of course, the Irish backstop, the whole vexed question about the Irish border, which has dominated so much of this debate, was to the fore. Now, there had been some rumours that Boris Johnson, maybe, to get Brexit, might ditch Northern Ireland. That's been some of the Westminster gossip over the last couple of weeks. And here was Boris this morning in Belfast responding to his commitment to not give up his involvement with Northern Ireland if he becomes Prime Minister.
The backstop presents a Prime Minister of the UK with an absolutely unacceptable choice. Yes. Between abandoning our ability to govern ourselves, in the sense that we would, the UK would have to submit to EU law on tariffs and EU law on regulations with no say on those rules, or alternatively to give up control of the government of Northern Ireland. And that is clearly unacceptable. And that's a choice that I totally reject. As I've said before, if the union comes first, of course, but I believe that we should not be faced with that choice. And the solution must be for the whole UK to come out in its entirety from the EU, and to find the solutions that are needed for frictionless trade across the border in the context of the free trade deal. And we can. And Michel Barnier and others have said that those solutions are there. And indeed they have said that they wouldn't impose a hard border themselves. And they're quite right. I think it'd be lunacy to do so.
Well, I might agree with a lot there of what Boris Johnson has said. And indeed, the European Parliament itself back in 2017 produced a report how to deal with the Irish border, and they were talking about technology in the case of a WTO no-deal Brexit. But what's amazing is Boris Johnson saying the backstop is unacceptable. I reject it. He just forgot to tell the audience one thing, which is, having twice voted against the new European treaty, which included the backstop, on the third time, Mr. Johnson, you voted for it. Did you tell the people of Belfast that today? I don't think so. And let's listen to Jeremy Hunt answering a very similar question about the backstop.
Will you be able to pledge, Mr. Hunt, that there will never be a separate Northern Ireland-only referendum on the issue of the backstop, and that in relation to Brexit, that Northern Ireland will be treated in exactly the same way as all the other parts of the United Kingdom?
Yes. And, let me be clear, I think that is the heart of the difficulties that we've had with the current deal is a fear that the backstop, which the Northern Ireland business community on the whole welcomes, but unionists in Northern Ireland feel concerned by, because they worry that it would either risk different regulatory environment for Northern Ireland to the rest of the UK, which would be a barrier for the union, or it could mean the whole of the UK had to follow EU regulations, which could weaken the commitment to the union in the rest of the UK. So for that reason, we have to change the backstop. I think it's very important to remember that Northern Irish trade with GB is more than Northern Irish trade with the Republic of Ireland, the EU and the rest of the world put together. So we can never have any barriers to trade between Northern Ireland and Great Britain.
So that's Jeremy Hunt. He is going to change the backstop. This from the man who sat in Theresa May's cabinet, where the backstop was part of that new treaty, and voted for it 3 times in a row. You can tell there's an election on. They're telling people in those audiences what they want to hear. But do you think that Hunt and Johnson are realistic in thinking that they can get the EU to renegotiate the backstop? And if you think, yep, absolutely, the EU see that in fact we could well leave with no deal unless they do renegotiate this. If you think, yeah, there is going to be some wriggle room from Brussels, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe, like me, you think there's not a cat's chance in hell of them changing that treaty. They've got the UK where they want them. It isn't going to happen, because that's how I feel about this. Text to 84850 and tell me, do you believe these candidates when they stand up and say what they're saying at these hustings? Or like me, do you think cynically they're just trying to get votes, making commitments that they'll drop very quickly after the winner is announced? Perhaps I'm too cynical. I don't know. But you can tell me by tweeting, using the hashtag Farage and LBC, at LBC, and of course, Facebookers, YouTubers and others. You can watch us live and comment too. I have to say, politics is an extraordinary thing. Let's go to Belfast. Let's go to Mark. Hi, Mark.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
Good evening. I'm okay. I've had a very busy day over here, which I'll chat about later.
Of course.
So, did you, number one, did you think that Johnson and Hunt were being sincere today in what they said?
Not in the least. I've spoken to you the first time I spoke to you. Actually, I mentioned how little I trusted Boris Johnson.
I remember.
However, he is now probably the best of the two options. So we have to go with the facts, and those are the facts presently.
So if he's the best of the two options, Mark, but you still don't believe he's telling the truth, it doesn't sound like a very good choice, does it?
Absolutely not, no. I'd have much preferred Steve Baker, actually, or even probably the best constitutional lawyer in Parliament since Coke would be Sir William Cash. But unfortunately, he didn't go on.
I think Bill's touching 80, so I'm not sure Bill
of course
would really. I mean, charming man though he is, I don't think he's quite up for being Prime Minister. Mark, do you fear, I've corresponded with people in Northern Ireland over the last month or two, and one or two of them said to me that they fear that what could happen here is that Northern Ireland effectively gets ditched by the rest of the UK.
I believe that's been the plan all along from the government in Dublin, and the EU have seen this part of Ireland as the weak point in the entire EU Brexit negotiations. Unfortunately, though, there is no requirement whatever for the backstop. I mean, people are frightened that come the Ulster final in a few months' time, that were Brexit in place, I as an Armagh supporter, would be unable to go to St Cernix Park in Monaghan, my mother's home county, and watch the two teams playing one another. But surely that's just scaremongering, isn't it? Precisely. I have a constitutional right as an Irish citizen whose family have been here for some 10,000 years to travel into any part of Ireland I wish. Well, I don't see any problem. That's the problem for people. That isn't going to change. That isn't going to change. They're being sucked in by the mainstream media and the narrative which the likes of BBC and others are pushing. The fact is, there is no requirement whatsoever for the backstop. We can rely upon Article 24 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades. I'm a lawyer working in the field of international trade, so it's something I know a thing or two about. We can do that, Mark. We can do that, Mark. We can do that, Mark, only if the European Union agree. Precisely, but it's in their best interests to agree because the balance of trade deficit is in their favour. Well, logic says to me that's right too. Others will disagree. Mark, can I just finally ask you, do you think that the European Union will give something to either Johnson or Hunt on the backstop, such as a time limit, for argument's sake? I believe if they are both serious, and Hunt I certainly would not think is serious, that he is prepared to leave with no deal on the 31st of October, that they might very well cave in.
Okay.
Because again, in their best interest.
Okay. No, Mark, interesting. So Mark there thinks if we're serious, and if they believe we're serious about no deal, that the EU might give a bit. I'm not sure I agree. I'm not persuaded yet. Let's go to Bude in North Cornwall and speak to Patrick, a new caller. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening, Nigel. I'd just like to say I'm wondering what Ollie Robbins has been doing for the last 3 years. In 1972, I was recruited by the Australian government actually to take Papua New Guinea through to independence, and we simply followed the precedent that Britain had followed with its Commonwealth before, when countries became, former colonies became independent. So essentially, at the cut-off date, you have the particular cut-off date. Following on from that date, everything remains the same, and then the particular countries look at each individual treaty that they wish to adopt or whether they don't wish to adopt and proceed on that basis. What we've got here is an incredible mishmash. I've also worked within the UN, and there's just absolutely no way that we're going to renegotiate this by the 31st of October. It's just not going to happen, and anyone that thinks it is absolutely crackers as far as I'm concerned. I just feel that it's a situation that we've got to leave with actually no deal, and have a situation where if we can try and make the laws continue on after the actual Brexit, and then negotiate them individually. They said we can't cherry pick. Well, of course we can cherry pick. It's a sovereign right of countries to cherry pick. And if the EU don't want those particular ones, and we do, then there's no agreement. But certainly this must be a considerable ones that we should be able to agree on. But as far as Northern Ireland, that's a situation. It's going to take years to try and work out a procedure for Northern Ireland, and it's one of those situations that the present situation, the status quo, should be allowed to continue as it is at the moment. And
that's what Article 24, Patrick. That's what Article 24, of the GATT treaty would do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And but I mean, I just think that Ollie Robbins, he's going to resign.
He was working for the other side, Patrick, wasn't he? He was working to keep us in a customs union.
He'll probably get a place up in the House of Lords.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I mean, they've wasted 3 whole years, and it's absolutely absurd. And Britain should be the one that should be able to progress and negotiate a Brexit better than anyone else, because we've negotiated similar things with all our former colonies in the past. Exactly, a very similar situation.
I love that point. We've given independence to countries all over the world, and our civil service and government are incapable of getting independence for us. Patrick, great call. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 16 minutes past 6 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The Brexit parties defending the behaviour of their new MEPs who turned their backs on the EU anthem as they took their seats in the opening session of the European Parliament this morning. Tory leadership candidate Boris Johnson has accused the European Union of moral blackmail over the plans for the controversial Northern Irish backstop. Theresa May has wished England the best of luck ahead of their semi-final match against the USA in the Women's World Cup in Lyon later. LBC weather staying largely dry and clear overnight for most of the UK. Showers moving into the far north, a low of 3 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. There are queues for around 45 minutes on the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 9 for Leatherhead and junction 7 for the M23 after 2 accidents. It's struggling on the M3 southbound from the M25 towards junction 3 for Bagshot because of a breakdown. And in the centre of town, it's queuing on the A4 westbound approaching Scotch Corner because of an accident. In Dagenham, Longbridge Road is closed in both directions near Lodge Avenue because of an accident. And on the tubes, there are minor delays on the district line.
This is LBC.
Let's all switch like Crouchy. Let's all switch like Crouchy. La 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 la.
I'm Peter Crouch. I've played for loads of different clubs and switched contracts more times than I've been asked, how's the weather up there? But compared to the switches at Carphone Warehouse, I'm not even Sunday League. Their massive range of phones, networks and deals give you so many reasons to switch, all while keeping the same number.
Pull a switcheroo and you could save money at Carphone Warehouse. T's and C's apply. Visit website for more details.
LBC.
When it comes to business meetings, some things never change. Like the always awkward greeting. The hug you thought was a handshake. The one kiss, two kiss, can. The guy that fist bumps around the boardroom like a bro. But some things do change. Like being able to veto the awkward greeto and video call via the web instead. Ooh, yeah! You got this, bro. Conference call, video call, and screen share with Powwow Now. Join free today.
Just There are few greater joys in life than a sumptuous hot bath. Time to let the stresses of the day just melt away. Unless your plumbing goes. That's a recipe for a meltdown. But Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable. So if you need a plumber or other professionals in their trade, just relax. Trusted Trader are only a click away.
Mr. Davis, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
Renewing your tax credits is too important to forget. So here's an unforgettable reminder.
Don't forget to renew your tax credits. It's very, very, very important.
Renew your tax credits by the 31st of July, or your payments will stop. Go to gov.uk/manage your tax credits today.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo, company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
And some breaking news from the meetings in Brussels that are now in their third day. Donald Tusk, of course, the outgoing president of the European Council, says that the European Council has agreed on the future leadership of the EU institutions, with Belgium Prime Minister Charles Michel nominated to replace him as the Council president. And wait for this one. Ex-German Defence Minister Ursula von der Leyen nominated as the European Commission President. Now, they're going to have a vote on this, and if it gets a majority, well, it will be von der Leyen who is the new European Commission President, replacing Jean-Claude Juncker, the most powerful person out of 500 million people. And I can hear you now saying, who is she? I've never heard of her. And very few people in the rest of Europe outside Germany will ever have heard of her. And that means we in the European Parliament tomorrow will vote for the next president of the European Parliament. But it's already been agreed and been stitched up that it will be another German called Manfred van Weber. And he's one of the most bureaucratic, dullest people I've ever met in my life. Manfred Weber is not going to be a barrel of laughs. And Pat from Brentwood says, Nigel, was it wise to turn your back on 27 countries? Don't we need them for deals? Pat, I will deal at the bottom of the hour with everything that happened in the European Parliament today. I will give my opinion, and if I'm quite happy to take one or two calls on the subject as well. But let's stick to the moment, to what is being said. Boris is saying that the backstop is unacceptable. I reject it completely. Then he says, maybe we can leave and sort it out afterwards. Boris, there won't be a withdrawal agreement with these people unless you do agree to it, unless there's some massive give in Brussels. I don't see it. Interestingly, also Jeremy Hunt is saying that it's got to change, it's got to be renegotiated. Is that practicable? Is that possible? I'm going to ask Nick in Richmond, who's a new caller, what he makes of that. Good evening, Nick.
Hi, Nigel.
So,
can I just say that I wasn't surprised by the predictability of your PR stunt in Strasbourg today, but I do wonder just what we're meant to think about the fitness for office of somebody who plays Second World War air raid sirens, at a gathering of his populist party.
Well, there we are,
Nick. I wonder if you're aware how many people were burned to death in the Blitz, Nigel, in Rotterdam.
Yeah, very, very aware, very, very aware. And sirens, and sirens are used, and sirens are used.
Why is that something to make fun of? Why is that something to make light of?
Nobody was making
fun.
Come
along, you knew exactly what you were doing. Why did you do it?
Because a siren is a wake-up call. Hey, something's about to happen.
And impended destruction and burned to death. okay?
Nick,
Why
we
is
used
that
a
funny?
siren to make. Nick, we used a
Why is
siren
that
to wake
funny?
everybody up.
I
Nobody
said, why is it
laughed.
funny?
It wasn't. It was to get attention.
You need work on your moral compass, mate.
Oh, right. Very good. Now, Nick, do you want to just... I mean, I don't mind. You can write an alternative CV for me if you want to, or you can tell me whether you think it's realistic. Were Johnson and Hunt telling the truth today?
You are the worst kind of populist. Nobody falls for your ruses.
Well, do you know what, Nick? Actually, if ruses is what they are, the real truth is that actually in the European elections, a lot of people did. Now, Nick, you've had your fun. Goodbye. Let's go to Kevin, a new caller from Nottingham. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing? Good to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. So, do you think Boris and Jeremy Hunt were being utterly sincere today in what they said? Is it possible that they can get the European Union to change the backstop?
I'd like to believe that they could. I'm quite cynical. I'm obviously a great fan of yourself. I'm also a paid-up member of the Brexit Party as well. I'm glad you're here. I'm sure you're glad to hear. I'm finding it really hard to trust any Tory, to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
Oh, I know the feeling, Kevin. 108 times Theresa May told us we're leaving on March the 29th. It is quite difficult to believe anything, isn't it?
It is, but the part of me wants to believe in Boris, probably more over Jeremy Hunt. Jeremy Hunt, I don't know, he just doesn't convince me. I think he's just trying to do what he wants to do to get himself into the PM's position. I think where Boris has probably got a little bit more sincerity with him.
But how? Okay, Kevin. Okay, all right. But, Boris rejects the backstop completely. He says it's unacceptable. We heard that loud and clear at the top of the show. And yet he voted for it on the third time of asking. How can we believe him?
That's the cynical part of me still, Nigel. That I think, maybe, he's, again, in a similar ilk as Jeremy, where he's just probably just trying to get himself elected. However, it wouldn't be so bad if you were a candidate yourself.
No, well, that's not going to happen, Harry. Kevin, I can tell you, I have been here for 20 years, right? And we're talking about Theresa May's deal as if we can fiddle around with it. Michel Barnier has it bound up in one document, holds it in his hand in the coffee bar and says this is the new European treaty. They are not going to change a single dot or comma of it, in my opinion. Kevin, thank you. Well, Kevin there from Nottingham, hopeful, but I don't think he really believes it. Tony is a new caller from Preston. Tony, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
I'm okay. So, could Hunt get the European Union to change the backstop, in your view?
I don't think... What I think is, as long as, the House of Parliament are divided, and they can see, as we watch, our dirty linens, in public, they would never, ever change it. Never. It's not going to happen. Except we are very serious. I certainly see that we are serious with, the Brexit, the non-Brexit...
no-deal Brexit.
Deal. No-deal Brexit.
Lots of ways of calling it. Yeah.
They will never change it.
If the winner said, right, I'm not mucking about this time. We are leaving on the 31st of October, and we mean it. We're putting everything in place to do that. You think in those circumstances they might come and talk to us, yeah?
Yeah, they might talk to us, if they know that the House of Parliament is going to back what the Prime Minister says. Because they know that they would always go back and stop it. So they would never, ever change it.
But, Tony, I think if a British Prime Minister was to say we're leaving on the 31st of October with no deal, I think the European Commission and others here would bargain on, OK, this is good, because this may bring the government down and it may force either a general election or a second referendum. What they want here, they want the Brits to have a second referendum because they think, just like Denmark years ago and Ireland not so long ago, they think in a second referendum we'd vote to stay. That's what they really think, Tony.
And I agree with you. I really agree with you on that because the House of Parliament is divided, and until the House of Parliament agrees, on a no deal, they're just going to keep pushing until we can either get a second referendum or an election. That is what they're going to keep doing because they know that whatever the Prime Minister says will not hold water, without the backing of the House of Parliament, and they're just going to continue doing that until we go back to, like a second referendum or something. That's what is going to happen.
What would you do, Tony? If you were in charge, Tony, what would you do?
What I would do, I will call for an election. That's what I'm going to do, because even if Boris Johnson or Hunt get in there and they say, we're going to call, we're going to live without a deal, the House of Parliament is going to find a way of stopping it. So they should just go straight to
ask the people to back just leaving with no deal, in a general election.
Straight on.
Do you think, Tony, do you think the people of this country would vote for that?
I believe so. Yeah, I am a Brexiteer. I don't know anybody that, personally. I know very few people that are Remainers. I'm sure they will vote for it. And even if there is like a second referendum, anything on staying in Europe shouldn't be on it. It should be on a deal or no deal. There shouldn't be anything on staying in Europe in any way.
Tony, I agree with that, but of course we've got the Liberal Democrats who've had a big surge in the opinion polls, and they turned up here in the European Parliament this morning, and I will talk about that in a moment. But the Liberal Democrats and many others think that actually Brexit hasn't worked out very well, and that we weren't told the truth and we deserve a second vote. That's what they think.
What truth are we talking about? They keep saying we didn't know what we voted or what we voted for. I mean, I know what I voted for when I voted to leave Europe. Whatever the case, there were two sides to this: the Remainers and the Brexiteers. Even if the Brexiteers were not saying maybe, saying what was right, it was up to the Remainers to put things right. So it was both ways. I don't understand what you're talking about.
Tony, I agree with you. I just thought I'd give you the counter-argument, that was all, but you dealt with it very effectively. Clearly, Tony there from Preston, new caller of the show, a very passionate Brexiteer, as indeed there's passion on the other side too. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. The time is now 6:30 and it's time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
Newly elected Brexit Party MEPs have turned their backs on their colleagues in protest as the European Parliament opened its first session. Nigel Farage, Anne Widdecombe and Annunziata Rees-Mogg all faced the wrong way as the EU anthem Ode to Joy was played this morning, but denied it was disrespectful. In the last half an hour, Donald Tusk's announced the Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel has been nominated to replace him as European Council President. The two Tory leadership contenders have been in Belfast for their latest hustings event today, with Jeremy Hunt telling the audience the contentious Irish border backstop has to change or it has to go in order to get a Brexit deal agreed with the EU and through Parliament, while Boris Johnson's accusing Brussels of moral blackmail over the arrangement and insists he would never allow the return of a hard border with the Republic if he becomes Prime Minister. A 78-year-old's been jailed for shooting dead his great-grandson with an air rifle. Albert Grannon's been sentenced to 3 years after admitting the manslaughter of 6-year-old Stanley Metcalfe in East Yorkshire last summer. LBC weather staying largely dry and clear overnight for most of the country. Showers, though, moving into northern England and also Scotland with a low of 3 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Ian Duncan-Smith, chairman of Boris Johnson's leadership campaign. Good morning. Lord William Hay. He says Mr. Hunt is the candidate who stood out.
Well, I'm not surprised. This is the guy, by the way, that once said that the euro was like a burning building with no exits. So he wants to have somebody who absolutely will keep us in a burning building with no exit. Truth is, we have destroyed our own support base. And what we want to do, according to William, is to go back and do all of that all over again.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
The M&S sale is now on with up to 50% off selected clothing, home and beauty in selected stores and online while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
If you lose your dog, the DVLA can't help. If you lose your glasses, they can't help. Although it's worth checking the knot on your head. But if you lose your driving licence or if it's stolen or defaced, the DVLA will come to your rescue. All you have to do is go online and you can get a replacement quickly and conveniently. Just go to direct.gov.uk/replace licence.
Becky, you've been out there for a while. Come and top up your sun cream.
But I'm powering up.
What do you mean?
You can get electricity from the sun, right? So I thought I'd try it too.
I don't think it quite works like that, love. But either way, you need more cream on.
Fine.
At Shell Energy, we supply all our home energy customers with 100% renewable electricity as standard. Just their homes, mind you. Search Shell Energy. Home energy matters. Visit shellenergy.co.uk.
Meg, the driving instructor, is definitely almost 90% sure she's filing her VAT right. Kinda. But she'd be more confident with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is perfect for making tax digital and is HMRC recognised. Get up to 50% off your first 6 months. And maybe put it towards a new clutch.
Making tax digital means monthly VAT returns are changing too. Are you ready for the 7th of July? Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. QuickBooks, backing you.
When it comes to business meetings, some things never change. Like getting hit by the inevitable train pain on the day of the presentation. Ooh, that hurt. Right in the signal box. But some things do change. Like a different kind of platform that lets you screen share remotely and present documents without delay. All aboard! Next stop, Promotionville. Conference call, video call, and screen share with PowWow Now. Join free today.
When you're driving along a motorway and you see a red X sign, it means stay out of that lane because there's a hazard up ahead. Red X signs are there to keep us safe and keep us moving, because we all want to be somewhere. Somewhere like going to watch the undefeated Blue and Whites being defeated. Oh well, it's always next season. Follow the signs. Keep us all moving. Search Highways England Motorways to find out more.
The world of financial investments can be complex and intimidating, which is why you trusted the experts at your bank. But they let you down and sold you an investment that lost money. At Goodwin Barrett, we'll help you through the process of making a complaint and winning the compensation you deserve. Right now, Goodwin Barrett are offering a quick investment assessment to discover just how much you could be owed. To start yours, text GOOD to 60777. Text GOOD to 60777 now.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Strasbourg, only on LBC.
So at 10 o'clock this morning, the European Parliament opened the beginning of a new 5-year term, although, of course, we're only supposed to be here until the end of October. What happened? Well, President Tajani, Italian politician, called the Parliament to order. A musical quintet came into the well of the Parliament, and he announced that there would be the European Anthem. And everybody stood ramrod straight to attention. We didn't. The 29 from the Brexit Party sat resolutely in our seats, at which Tajani barked at us. Standing up is a matter of respect. It doesn't mean supporting the EU. Even when listening to the anthem of a foreign country, one should stand up. So there he was, basically saying the European Union is a country. And I thought, well, the hell with that. So we did stand up, didn't make any noise or anything like that, but we turned our backs, and we did it, well, partly because we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here, but we are here, of course, because the British Parliament have turned their backs on the British people. Some people seem to be very upset with what we've done. Others think it was the right thing to do. I mean, who asked anybody in Europe as to whether this should become a country? Everybody was told it was a club about cooperation and about trade. So no regrets from me at all. And then after that, very, very funny, after that, they pulled out 8 names out of the 751 at random who will act as tellers for the voting tomorrow morning for the new president of the European Parliament. And of the 8 names they pulled out, 2 were from the Brexit Party, 25%. You couldn't believe it, really, on the numbers. And when the second name came out, we all sort of laughed and cheered, and we were then accused of behaving like English football supporters. So, one way or another, the Brexit Party have made their mark. I think standing up and turning our backs was the right thing. Some people think it's great. Other people are very upset about it. Patrick is calling from Denmark on this topic. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you doing?
So, what did you make of the back-turning incident, Patrick?
I found it embarrassing. And I've spoken to people in Denmark, and they say, what the hell is your country up to? It did look like English football fans turned their back on other teams. And also, Nigel, I have to say, it looked like trained clowns on a stage with an absent ringmaster. I feel embarrassed, and I know other people from the UK feel embarrassed.
Okay,
How do you feel
Patrick,
about that?
can I ask you, and maybe if we hadn't been taunted by the President of the European Parliament, I wasn't going to stand for the anthem under any circumstances and face the front, absolutely not. And maybe if Tajani hadn't taunted us about standing up and respecting another country, we wouldn't have done it. But how did you feel about the Liberal Democrats? And if you didn't like what we did, the Lib Dems turned up today in yellow T-shirts with Stop Brexit on the front, and on the back they had the B word to Brexit, a coarse, vulgar word written all over their T-shirts. How did you feel about that?
That wasn't correct either. I mean, Stop Brexit, fine. The vocal verb beginning with B has no meaning in any European language. It's unlikely to offend anyone, but yes, I take your point. It's not something you say in front of your young children, but it is commonly used in the street. I would say that it's not something uncommon.
Not very parliamentary, though, is it?
It's not very parliamentary, but neither turning your back. Now, I read into this, and I'm thinking to myself, is this part of a game? Is this part of a game that the Brexit Party is playing to try and get the UK kicked out of the EU before any deal can be done?
Oh, Patrick, I tell you what, if I wanted us to be kicked out, I'd have made a lot more fuss. No, look, I said to the group this morning that I said, look, what we're going to do, let's be cheerfully defiant, and that's pretty much what we've been today. We shouldn't be here. We should have left. The British Parliament have turned their backs on us, Patrick.
Can I make one more point?
Of course.
You talk about the European national anthem. It is a tune. It's something that Beethoven wrote, I believe.
Yes.
But you know what? The UK also has an anthem.
Yes, because we're a proper country. Because we're a proper country.
It's a group of 4 countries, Nigel.
It's a United Kingdom. Do you think? Okay, fine. So, do you think that the European Union has the legitimacy, has sought the democratic approval of the peoples of Europe so that it can call itself a legitimate state? Because I don't, Patrick.
I don't know, Nigel, but the national anthem of America is a national anthem.
Well, if you're no, Patrick, you are putting the European. I mean, you are basically saying to me that the European Union is an internationally recognised state, and I'm arguing that has happened without legitimate democratic consent.
Well, any vote that's taken in the European Union is something that the UK would vote on. And I think there was a source that I read that said that we'd only actually disagreed, I think it was 6% of the votes. We'd only voted against 6% of the motions that they voted on.
Of course, because the British government have been signed up to the European project from day one. Patrick, we did have a vote on this. In 1975, we had a referendum on this, and my parents' generation were told, it's just a common market, don't worry your little heads about sovereignty. We weren't told the truth. It's morphed into a state. It now wants to have its own army. It wants to expand. Patrick, we agree to disagree, but I thank you very much indeed for the call. And just some thoughts on the new council president replacing Donald Tusk, Louis Michel from Belgium. Just a few little facts about him. He became a member of parliament when he was 23. He's now 43. He's never had a job after university in the real world at all. I think they've got the perfect man for the job. Mike in Croydon wants to speak to me about backturning as well. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, just very childish, really. I mean, what the hell? Are you 5-year-olds? Is your little group of are you even a political party? I thought you were just a group of people.
Oh, right. And what about, and are you happy, Mike?
Nigel, let me finish. This is the face that you present of the behaviour of the entirety of Britain. You are there representing all of Britain, not just yourselves. And this is how you disrespect how many hundreds of millions of different people in that club of 27?
Oh, just Mike, I tell you what, there's a huge numbers of people across Europe very supportive of what we did today, because they too have been hoodwinked, lied to by their politicians and taken into a political union.
I don't disbelieve that politicians have lied to people. I'm sure you have a number of times in your lifetime. However, the behaviour is childish. You go there, you hold your head up straight, you act like a gentleman, and you speak loudly and you say what you need to say. You don't act like a bunch of spoilt children who turn their backs on their friends and say, I'm not playing anymore. I'm going to turn my back on you. That's
we don't recognise. We don't recognise. No, Mike. We don't recognise the legitimacy of these institutions. It's as simple as that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does matter. It really matters. It matters a lot, Mike.
The validity of a parking ticket, you don't slap the traffic warden. You write to the parking authority and you dispute the parking ticket.
Are you really?
You behave
Honestly?
like a gentleman.
Are you really comparing parking tickets
I'm saying, regardless
to the
of
democratic rights
that you disagree with,
of hundreds of millions of Europeans being taken away?
If you don't keep talking over me,
you are very upset, Mike, aren't you? You're very upset.
Yes, no, I'm just.
Are you a Lib Dem, Mike? Are you a Lib Dem? Are you a Lib Dem? Come on, tell me.
I don't support any political party. No, I'm not a Lib Dem. I'm not a Tory. I'm not a Conservative. I'm not Labour. No, I don't support any political party because, as you said earlier on, I find most politicians to be self-serving liars. So I don't want to put my vote behind any of them. However, what I'm saying to you, instead of you putting words into my mouth that I'm comparing the European Union to a parking ticket, no matter what in life upsets you, you behave like a gentleman. You keep your decorum, you keep your head held up high, and then you speak your points loudly and clearly. Behaviour like it was exhibited today is
Mike,
simply
don't worry.
childish.
Don't worry. And by the way, how did you feel about the Lib Dems having? Mike, either you're going to have a conversation or Mike, I'll give you one more chance. I'll give you one more chance. What did you make of the Lib Dems with "B to Brexit" on the back of their t-shirts?
That is stupid, also. But however, their stupidity doesn't negate your stupidity. Two stupids don't make one intelligent move.
They certainly don't. In any walk of life, they don't. And I'd agree with you on that. Mike, I do not recognise the legitimacy of this institution. They have stolen the democratic rights from hundreds of millions.
And I agree with you on that point. There's a lot about the EU that I don't like. However, if I had a disagreement with my boss because he told me there's a new policy that I disregarded and I didn't like and I thought it was illegal and it wasn't of any benefit to my country, I wouldn't stand there and turn my back on my boss. I'd turn around and say, let's speak.
Well, I turn my back on some people that I don't believe should be my boss. Mike, you don't like it. I get the point. Thank you very much indeed for your call. So let's get back, if we can, if it's possible, to... I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's take a break. The time is now 6:45. Let's get the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage has told LBC turning his back on the opening session of the European Parliament this morning was the right way to protest at having to be there. Tory leadership candidate Boris Johnson's accused the European Union of moral blackmail over the plans for the controversial Northern Irish backstop. And Theresa May's wished England the very best of luck ahead of their semi-final match against the USA in the Women's World Cup in Lyon. LBC weather staying largely dry and clear overnight for most of the country. Showers, though, moving into the far north, a low of 3 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. Queues continue on the M25 for around 45 minutes anti-clockwise between junction 9 for Leatherhead and junction 7 for the M23 after 2 separate accidents. In the centre of town, it's struggling on the A4 westbound approaching Scotch Corner because of an accident. And in Clapton, there are queues on Upper Clapton Road southbound approaching the Lee Bridge roundabout because of an accident as well. In Dagenham, Longbridge Road is closed in both directions near Lodge Avenue. That's because of an accident too.
Block management. 2 very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters. ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
One last cigarette before bed. And while you're enjoying it, just remember that more people die in house fires caused by cigarettes than anything else. So make sure you put it out, right out, before you go to sleep. Fire kills. You can prevent it. Sleep tight.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper.
Finding battered receipts in the wash? Stressing out your accountant? Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo, company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
High quality, affordable kitchens designed in your own home. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Book your free Room Sense home design visit and we'll measure up, show you samples, create a stunning kitchen design and give you a quote all before we leave.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Book today at roomsense.co.uk.
Psst. Did you know that Pimlico Plumbers have an utterly fabulous 24-hour service for plumbing, heating, drains, roofing, electrics, appliances, carpentry and building? Whatever your predicament, Pimlico Plumbers can send a friendly face to your door within the hour. Shh! And just between us, their work even comes with a 12-month guarantee. They aren't just any old tradesmen, they're Pimlico Plumbers, and they're always available on 0207 928 8888 or at pimlicoplumbers.com.
Your company's doing pretty well. Your tax position's okay. So, what's keeping you awake at night?
To face the future with confidence, talk to Vision Consulting. We've expanded from Gants Hill to the Gherkin, with clients from the fishmonger to the multi-million-pound property investment company. And our growth as a firm of chartered accountants and registered auditors is based on our passion for our clients' business.
Have confidence in your accountant. See visionconsulting.co.uk.
Are you a business owner who's ready to retire? Or maybe an entrepreneur ready to sell and move on to your next exciting project? At Barnes Rofe, we actively work with successful entrepreneurs to help them through the sales process and maximize exit value. So, why not get some first-rate advice and speak to one of our experts? Your first meeting will be free, and you can make sure you really are getting the best deal. Contact us at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Your message is flooding in. Tim on YouTube says, standing up was the wrong message. Makes us look bad in the eyes of the EU. I'm not going to lose much sleep over that. Alex on YouTube says, can I turn my back on the British anthem? People often don't stand for it, or they do cross their fingers. It does happen. Not that much, but it does happen. And Leslie says, I don't think the EU will change a thing in the treaty. We should turn our backs on them. Just leave. I'm sick of being held hostage by them. Let's get back, if we can, to Boris Johnson telling us that he finds the backstop completely unacceptable, that he wants absolutely nothing to do with it. He rejects it. And Jeremy Hunt telling us that it's all got to change, despite the fact both of them have in the past voted for it. Is it realistic to think that the European Union is going to change a thing? And are they really telling the truth, or just telling a Belfast audience what they think they want to hear? I'm going to ask Elfie in Caterham that very question. Good evening.
Hi, Nigel. I just want to point out a couple of things that you've said tonight that I don't believe to be quite right. So you've talked about, in terms of the backstop, we've got the chance to possibly come out of that with the time limit. I'm not necessarily...
Yeah.
Sorry, can I finish? I'm not necessarily in support of the backstop, but the reason that we can't obviously come out is because it protects the Irish border. Another one of your inaccuracies that you've said tonight...
Elfie, stop. I wasn't suggesting that I even wanted a time limit. There was speculation. That maybe one of them could get a time limit of 2025 or 2028. Okay. That's all I was saying.
Right. Okay. Understood. But you then went on to speak about border technology, which when you were talking about the EU solutions to the backstop.
Yes.
So if we have that border technology, that's all well and good, but it doesn't exist anywhere in the world, anywhere. Especially with the level of the political sensitivity with Northern Ireland and Ireland, as you know. And you also went on to talk about no deal and how it could make the EU budge. actually what leaving with no deal does is weaken our negotiating power even further. Because we have to get that approved by local parliaments as well as the EU Parliament, as you should well know as an MP yourself.
Well, you know, we've got America and the rest of the world queuing up to have those conversations with us. Elfie, on the border stuff, just bear this in mind. Just bear this in mind.
Sorry, can I just say, you talk about America and the rest of it, but 80% of our economy is in financial services. And most of that is found within the EU, as you know.
No, it is. No. If you look at, for example, Lloyd's of London, 11% of its business is done in Europe. All right. You look at the city. You look at the city as a whole, and about 20% of its business is done in Europe. 20%. There's a great big world out there outside of it. I'm not saying that European business doesn't matter. Think about this. Think about this issue of the Irish border. All right. Right now, Elfie, today, all right, we have, between the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom, we have different income tax rates. We have different excise duties on tobacco, alcohol, things like that. Different corporation tax rates, all right, and a different currency. And yet things operate. What would happen in the result of a no deal? Well, if there were tariffs,
hard border, Nigel.
Hang on. There are two issues here, right? Let's try and deal with them. One is the issue.
You're avoiding the question. You're avoiding the
question.
One
is the issue of tariffs. All right. Now, goods go back and forth from Detroit to Canada, back and forth across that bridge every day, and where tariff has to be registered, it's done on a laptop, on a mobile phone. That's easy. The other issue,
not the political sensitivity that we just spoke about.
Exactly.
You're not doing that.
There is nowhere in the world, and because of that political sensitivity. All right?
Yeah.
Because of that sensitivity, which is precisely why a hard border would not get built. And already, the Taoiseach has said, in the event of no deal, there is no hard border. Michel Barnier has said, in the event of no deal, no hard border, and both the candidates to be our next Prime Minister have said there will be no hard border. Who's going to build this border, Elfie?
Even in terms of if we didn't, you're still making the situation worse, because we still can't have that free flow of goods that you're talking about. You know, you're giving me examples of America, which we know, as we've just.
I'm telling you, we can have the free. I'm telling you, we can have the free flow of goods.
With what authority?
The other issue.
The EU, Nigel.
Well, if the EU want to build a hard border, let them do it. But I'll have a bet with you.
I'll have a bet with you. Irish troubles start again and play with people's lives.
I'll have a bet with you.
Happen, Nigel?
I'll have a bet with you.
I'm not interested in bets.
Do you seriously think the European Union are going to build a hard border? Do you really think that?
If I think about it personally, I don't think they've got the political will to do it. But the fact that you're even speculating on that suggests that it could happen.
No. You're speculating on it. I'm telling you,
I'm not speculating. I'm telling you what is what could be the reality, Nigel.
Let me tell you the reality. There won't be a hard border. If there are tariffs, they can be logged, but there's no reason why we should have tariffs. And when it comes to different product specs, we are fully harmonised with Ireland at the moment. It would be years before that became an issue. I'm going to move on to Belfast and speak to Samuel, a new caller. Samuel, did you believe the words you heard today from the two Tory contenders?
I thought they spoke okay, but did I believe them? I didn't believe Jeremy because he's a Remainer. Boris, I think he'll try, and a lot of bluster, and I think he'll do his best to achieve this, get rid of the backstop. Whether he does or not, then I think he has to hold the threat of going for a no deal. And there will be, as your last caller tried to talk about, I'm a little sick of English people from England telling us over here what's going to happen to the border that I live 12 miles away from. As far as I'm concerned, you're 100% correct on this situation. There's no one in the south. There's no one in Europe, and there's no one in the UK wants to put up a hard border.
Yes, unless Donald Trump comes over and builds a wall. Look, there isn't going to be a hard border, whatever happens here, Samuel.
There's also a fact as regards this backstop. The backstop changes Northern Ireland's situation within the Union, and as far as the Good Friday Agreement says, that cannot be done without consent of both the Unionists and the Catholic population. Therefore, and the majority of unions are do not want or wish a backstop. Therefore, it breaks the Good Friday Agreement, as all these people are trying to say. It actually ends the Good Friday Agreement there and then, and it will stop the government in Stormont. It'll put it back a long way.
Well, Samuel, some could say what government in Stormont?
Well, that's true, but
that's a fair point, isn't it?
Further from coming back, yes, it's not going to come back if at that stage where we get a border down the Irish Sea. The unionists aren't going to go back into talks on those situations, and the government.
Samuel, I just don't believe that a British government is going to ditch Northern Ireland. I simply don't believe it. And I hear all this about borders in the Irish Sea and everything. I just don't believe it's going to happen. Samuel, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Huge passion on all sorts of subjects today. I'm going to be broadcasting again tomorrow night from Strasbourg. I'll try and behave tomorrow. I really do promise. Coming up at 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Well, Nigel, you know I admire you greatly, but today I think you and your colleagues brought shame on your country. It was childish, and I hope you'll look back on it and think it wasn't your finest hour.
Well, I doubt that, Ian, but I doubt that very much indeed.
But honestly, it was one of the most shameful things I've seen in that European Parliament. And believe me, I've seen a lot.
Well, I tell you what, I think when Tajani talked about the fact the European Union is now a country, that was it for me.
OK, Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Well, coming up in the next 3 hours, we are going to be in the company of Arch Remainer Dominic Grieve at 8 o'clock. He is going to take your calls. Lots to talk to him about, as you might imagine. During the news hour, we'll get more on the leadership hustings from Belfast, where I've spent most of the day. We'll have more on the Kenyan airline stowaway. There is white smoke in Brussels. Juncker's successor has finally been chosen. A pensioner has been jailed for manslaughter after shooting his 6-year-old great-grandson. But at 9 o'clock, we're going to return to that subject of Brexit MEPs turning their backs on their colleagues and Liberal Democrat MEPs wearing Grolloks to Brexit yellow T-shirts. See what I did there?